7 people died in 90 seconds. A 14-year-old girl caught a stray bullet to the face. When the smoke cleared at Milperra in 1984, Australia had witnessed the deadliest biker shootout in its history. The men who pulled those triggers weren't ordinary criminals. They were enforcers, the muscle, the ones who make sure club business gets handled no matter the cost. Today, you're about to meet the 10 most feared enforcers who've ever worn a patch in the US and Australia. These aren't characters from Sons of Anarchy. These are real men with real body counts. Introduction. In the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, there's a hierarchy. At the top sits the president, but right beside him stands someone just as powerful, maybe more dangerous. The sergeant-at-arms, the enforcer. This position exists in every major club from California to Queensland. Their job description is simple but brutal. Enforce club rules, provide security, handle discipline, and eliminate threats. The U.S. Department of Justice has identified 4 major clubs as the Big Four in America: Hells Angels, Outlaws, Bandidos, and Pagans. Add the Mongols, and you have the Big Five. In Australia, authorities track the Big Six: Hells Angels, Rebels, Comancheros, Bandidos, Finks, and Mongols. Between these organizations, thousands of patched members operate worldwide. Among them, certain enforcers have become legendary for their ruthlessness, their loyalty, and their willingness to do whatever their club demands. Let's start with the man who built the most powerful biker brand on Earth. Enforcer number 10, Sonny Barger. Barger didn't just join the Hells Angels. He created the template every outlaw biker would follow for the next 60 years. Born in Modesto, California in 1938, Barger founded the Oakland chapter of the Hells Angels in 1957 at age 19. His mother had abandoned him when he was 4 months old. His father was an alcoholic dock worker. Barger grew up hard, got kicked out of school for hitting teachers, and forged documents to join the Army at 16. When Barger took over Oakland, he transformed the Hells Angels from a loose collection of bike riders into a structured criminal organization. He incorporated the club legally in 1966, trademarked the Death's Head logo, and established chapters nationwide. But Barger's real power came from his willingness to use extreme violence to protect the club. In 1969, the Hells Angels provided security at the infamous Altamont Speedway concert. During the Rolling Stones performance, Hells Angel Alan Pissarro stabbed concert-goer Meredith Hunter to death. Barger later claimed he held a pistol to Keith Richards' ribs to force the band to start playing. Barger faced countless arrests throughout his career. He was acquitted of murder in 1972. In 1974, he was convicted of heroin trafficking and served 4 years. In 1988, he was convicted of conspiracy to bomb the Outlaws Motorcycle Club's clubhouse and served another 4 years. Enforcer number 9, Peter Big Pete James. When the Hells Angels and Outlaws went to war for control of Chicago in the 1990s, one man emerged from the chaos as the undisputed king of the Midwest. Peter Big Pete James became boss of the Chicago Outlaws and ruled for 2 decades through a combination of strategic brilliance and brutal enforcement. The Outlaws Motorcycle Club was founded in 1935, making it the oldest outlaw club in the world. By the 1990s, they dominated the Great Lakes region with over 1,700 members worldwide. But when the Hells Angels tried to establish a foothold in Chicago, the Outlaws' response was disorganized and violent. A series of bombings, shootings, and street fights erupted throughout the city. Big Pete first learned from the Hells Angels themselves before joining the Outlaws. He understood their tactics, their structure, their weaknesses. When outlaw leaders went to prison, Big Pete ascended through the ranks, never engage in any criminal activity for more than 2 years, because that's how long it takes law enforcement to build a case. He worked with the Italian mafia, absorbed smaller clubs, settled disputes among members, and maintained absolute control. Despite ruling Chicago's underworld for 20 years, Big Pete never went to prison, not once. A cancer diagnosis around 2015 finally ended his reign. In 2017, he published a book detailing his life. breaking the traditional outlaw code of silence. Some outlaws claim he was kicked out. Others say he's a legend. Either way, his impact on the club was undeniable. Enforcer number 8, William Jock Ross. Some enforcers rule through calculated violence, others through pure military discipline. William George Jock Ross was both. Born in Glasgow, Scotland in 1943, Ross grew up in the brutal Gorbals neighborhood where, as he said, "You never backed off, that's how you survived." He served 7 years in the British Army Royal Engineers, clearing minefields in Libya and laying new ones in Yemen. Ross emigrated to Sydney, Australia in 1968 and founded the Comancheros Motorcycle Club after watching the John Wayne film. But Ross didn't want a typical biker club. He wanted a paramilitary force. He required members to engage in weekly paramilitary drills. He formed an elite unit called the Strike Force, composed of the toughest members. Ross personally led his men into battle against rival clubs. In May 1973, he orchestrated an ambush of the Knights Motorcycle Club. Ross lured them to what they thought was a party in the bush, then attacked with his entire club. During the fight, a Knight ran over Ross with his motorcycle, breaking Ross's leg and giving him a permanent limp. Ross's hatred of betrayal was absolute. When member Anthony Spencer broke away to form a second Comancheros chapter, Ross viewed it as treason. The rivalry between the two chapters intensified until September 2nd, 1984, Father's Day in Australia. The two groups agreed to meet at a swap meet at the Viking Tavern in Milperra. Spencer's chapter had joined forces with the American Bandidos Club. Ross arrived with his loyal Comancheros. What happened next shocked the nation. The Milperra Massacre lasted roughly 90 seconds, but resulted in 7 deaths. 4 Comancheros, 2 Bandidos, and 14-year-old bystander Leanne Walters, who was struck by a stray bullet. Another 28 people were wounded. One witness, a photographer, captured the entire gunfight on camera. Her photographs became key evidence at trial. Ross was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. He served only 5 years before being released. In 2002, Lebanese immigrant Mahmoud Mick Hawi deposed Ross as Supreme Commander. But Ross's legacy as the man who turned the Comancheros into a military force remained intact. The club continues to be one of Australia's most feared organizations. Enforcer number 7, Alex Vella. From the strawberry farms of Western Sydney, Alex Vella built an empire that made him a millionaire and the most powerful biker boss in Australia. Born in Malta in 1953 as one of 11 children, Vella began working at age 8, carrying buckets of water on building sites for 30 cents a day. He never learned to read or write. His family emigrated to Australia in 1967, establishing a strawberry farm near Horsley Park, New South Wales. Vella joined the Rebels Motorcycle Club in 1972 at age 19. He also pursued boxing, eventually winning the Maltese Light Heavyweight Championship in 1978. But Vella's real talent was business. After 3 serious road accidents, he received $225,000 in compensation. He used that money to start importing motorcycles and building a property portfolio that would eventually be worth millions. In the 1980s, Vella worked multiple jobs simultaneously: bouncer, bricklayer, laborer. He parlayed every dollar into real estate and legitimate businesses. Between January 2012 and June 2013 alone, 718 Rebels members and associates faced 1,211 criminal charges. But Vella maintained he was simply a motorcycle enthusiast who built wealth through hard work. He won a major court case in 2008 against ANZ Bank, successfully suing for $2.7 million after his business partner forged his signature to fraudulently obtain loans. In 1990, police found $15,000 worth of marijuana at his home during a raid, but he received a light sentence, 18 months of 2 nights per week prison and community service. Vella's downfall came not from law enforcement, but from immigration. Despite living in Australia for over 40 years, Vella never became a citizen. In June 2014, while visiting Malta, Australian Immigration Minister Scott Morrison canceled his residency visa on character grounds. Vella tried to appeal, but the High Court rejected his application. The man known as the Maltese Falcon was permanently exiled from the country where he built his empire. His nephew Damien Vella took over as national president. Alex Vella continues to live in Malta, running the rebels from abroad, proving that true power in outlaw clubs transcends borders. Enforcer number 6. Alfonso Big Al Aceves. The Mongols. Motorcycle club was founded by men rejected by the Hells Angels because of their race. Latino and Native American bikers, denied entry to the predominantly white Angels, formed their own club in Montebello, California on December 5, 1969. Their first sergeant-at-arms was a Vietnam War veteran named Alfonso Big Al Aceves. He had served 3 tours of duty with the 101st Airborne Division, one of the most elite units in the U.S. Army. The Mongols developed a reputation for extreme violence, particularly against their primary enemies, the Hells Angels. According to law enforcement, a skull and crossbones patch worn by a Mongol indicates the member has killed on behalf of the club. A tattoo reading RFFN, Respect Few, Fear None, is allegedly only permitted for members who have committed acts of violence against Hells Angels. The Mongols' alliance with Hispanic street gangs gave them numerical superiority in Southern California. Through the 1970s and 1980s, they systematically drove the Hells Angels out of their Southern California territory, something no other club had accomplished. The Mongols currently have between 4,000 and 5,000 members worldwide across 25 countries. They are designated as an organized crime group by the U.S. Department of Justice, Australian Federal Police, and Europol. In October 2008, a massive FBI operation resulted in 160 search warrants and 110 arrest warrants targeting the Mongols for narcotics trafficking. Big Al's legacy as the club's first enforcer established a tradition of military-style discipline that continues today. Enforcer number 5. Colin Caesar. Campbell. Few enforcers have experienced life in multiple rival clubs like Colin Caesar Campbell. His journey through Australia's biker underworld gave him unique insight into the brutal reality of club warfare. Campbell started with the Gladiators Motorcycle Club, then became an enforcer for the Comancheros, and ultimately joined the Bandidos, where he served as sergeant-at-arms. The rivalry exploded on September 2nd, 1984, at the Milperra Massacre. Campbell was present during the 90-second gunfight that left 7 dead and 28 wounded. According to court documents, Bandido Gregory Shadow Campbell was shot in the throat and bled to death during the battle. Bandidos Vice President Mario Chopper Cianter killed Comanchero Vice President Robert Foggy Lane with a shot to the chest from a .357 Magnum rifle. The carnage continued until police arrived 15 minutes later. Pub staff allegedly kept selling beer while the war raged outside. Caesar Campbell was arrested and charged with murder. Because of the number of charges, police adopted a policy of charging everyone involved with first-degree murder, regardless of who actually killed whom. Campbell was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Inside some of Australia's toughest jails, Campbell led and protected imprisoned Bandidos members. He earned respect through his willingness to use violence when necessary and his absolute loyalty to the club. After his release, Campbell found that the outlaw biker world was changing. His old-school values of courage, brutal force, and unwavering loyalty to the club were creating more enemies than friends. Eventually, Campbell left the biker world behind. He wrote multiple books about his experiences, including Wrecking Crew, which details his time as the Bandidos' legendary enforcer. His accounts provide rare insight into the code enforcers live by. The club comes first, always, even if it costs you everything. Enforcer number 4. Daniel Hubon. The Pagans Motorcycle Club dominates the east coast of the United States with chapters throughout New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and surrounding states. Unlike other clubs, the Pagans move their national headquarters regularly to avoid law enforcement surveillance. They are one of the Big Four clubs tracked by the FBI. and are known for particularly violent conflicts with the Hells Angels. Hubon's arrest was part of a massive multi-agency investigation into the Pagans that involved court-authorized wiretaps, multiple undercover law enforcement agents, and numerous search warrants executed simultaneously across multiple jurisdictions. The investigation lasted 3 years and targeted the club's most violent members. In total, 11 Pagans members and associates were charged in June 2021 with narcotics distribution, firearms offenses, and violent crimes in aid of racketeering. The charges revealed the Pagans' enforcement structure. Multiple sergeants at arms across different chapters were arrested, including those from Camden County, Gloucester County, and Jersey City. These enforcers were responsible for using violence, weapons, and intimidation as standard practice. Law enforcement seized 10 firearms and more than 800 grams of methamphetamine during the operation. The investigation revealed that enforcers like Hubon were essential to the Pagans' criminal enterprise, maintaining discipline within chapters and carrying out acts of violence against rivals. Enforcer number 3, Michael Dunphy. In March 2025, federal prosecutors in Texas unsealed an indictment that revealed the inner workings of the Bandidos Motorcycle Club's enforcement apparatus. At the center was Michael Dunphy, known by his road name, Big John. For 10 years, Dunphy was a high-ranking Bandidos member. From 2020 until his departure in 2023, he held the position of National Sergeant at Arms, the highest-ranking enforcer in the Houston area. In that role, he supervised 17 other Bandidos chapters. Dunphy's power was absolute within the club's hierarchy. According to prosecutors, he issued orders that lower-ranking members were required to follow under threat of violent retaliation. Burns was fatally shot during the assault. Dunphy was charged with racketeering conspiracy under federal RICO statutes. The indictment alleged that while Dunphy may not have personally pulled the trigger, his position as National Sergeant at Arms made him responsible for crimes committed by members following his orders. In 2023, Dunphy also allegedly participated in the assault and robbery of 14 members of the Graybeards Motorcycle Club at a bar called Bimbo's. Prosecutors claimed that Bandidos members, under Dunphy's supervision, beat and robbed the Graybeards in retaliation for perceived disrespect. The Bandidos then allegedly set fire to County Line Ice House as punishment for hosting what authorities described as a fight night for Brothers East members. The case against Dunphy and other Bandidos revealed how modern outlaw clubs operate. National sergeants at arms issue orders. Lower-ranking enforcers carry them out. And the club maintains plausible deniability. Dunphy's arrest demonstrated that federal prosecutors are willing to target leadership positions under RICO statutes, holding them accountable for violence committed throughout their entire organization. The Bandidos have over 5,000 members worldwide and are considered one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in existence. Enforcer number 2, Mahmoud Mick Hawi. On March 22, 2009, Terminal 3 of Sydney Airport became a battlefield. 10 men from the Comancheros and Hells Angels clashed in a brutal brawl that lasted minutes but changed Australian biker history forever. Mahmoud Mick Hawi, the Lebanese-born Comancheros national president, led his men into battle against the Hells Angels' Anthony Zervas. During the fight, Zervas was beaten to death with a bollard and metal poles in front of horrified travelers. Hawi had deposed William Jock Ross as Supreme Commander of the Comancheros in 2002, taking over a club founded on military discipline and extreme violence. Under Hawi's leadership, the Comancheros modernized, recruited heavily from Middle Eastern communities in Sydney, and engaged in large-scale drug trafficking operations. The club imported amphetamines, smuggled cocaine, and established connections with Middle Eastern organized crime groups. The Sydney Airport brawl resulted in Hawi's conviction for murder. He was sentenced to 28 years in prison, but was released on parole after serving time. However, Hawi's freedom was short-lived. On February 14, 2018, he was gunned down outside a gym in Sydney in broad daylight. He was shot multiple times at close range in what authorities believe was a retaliation attack connected to ongoing biker wars. Hawi's murder sent shockwaves through the Australian underworld. It demonstrated that even former leaders who had served their time were never truly safe from the violence they had once commanded. Under Hawi's rule, the Comancheros expanded dramatically. They established chapters in New Zealand, exploiting Australia's policy of deporting convicted non-citizen felons. Police alleged the club operated as an organized crime group involved in money laundering, drug importation, and a commission scheme to fund military-style training. A former U.S. Marine had allegedly trained Comanchero members in combat drills and military tactics. The Comancheros remain one of Australia's most feared organizations. Close to 20 people have died in Comanchero-linked violence in Sydney over recent years. The club's enforcement structure is military-grade, their recruitment is sophisticated, and their willingness to use extreme violence remains unmatched. Hawi's legacy as an enforcer turned president who ruled through fear continues to define the club today. Enforcer number 1, Anthony Taterhead. Tait. The number 1 position goes to an enforcer who did something unprecedented. He infiltrated the most powerful biker club on Earth and brought down its entire leadership. Anthony Taterhead Tait was Sergeant-at-Arms for the Hells Angels Anchorage, Alaska chapter. In 1984, he volunteered to become a paid FBI informant. For 3 years, Tait traveled the country at government expense, meeting with Hells Angels members nationwide. He wore a wire, secretly recording club meetings, capable of carrying out club business. Barger had no idea Tait was recording every word. The FBI investigation was called Operation CACUS. On November 10, 1987, 38. Hells Angels members across Alaska and 4 other states were arrested simultaneously on narcotics, weapons, explosives, and conspiracy charges. It was the most devastating blow ever dealt to the Hells Angels. Tait's testimony was instrumental in convicting dozens of members, including high-ranking leadership. In 1988, Sonny Barger and others were convicted of conspiracy to bomb the Outlaws Motorcycle Club's Louisville, Kentucky clubhouse. Barger argued the government had entrapped him and that there never was a crime thought up by the Hells Angels. It was thought up by the FBI. The appeals court rejected his argument, stating that the government's conduct was necessary due to the Hells Angels' violent history. Tait's betrayal remains the most significant infiltration in outlaw motorcycle club history. He violated every code enforcers are supposed to uphold: loyalty, silence, and brotherhood. He used his position as Sergeant-at-Arms, one of the most trusted roles in any club, to gather evidence that sent his brothers to prison for decades. After Operation CACUS, clubs nationwide became paranoid about infiltration. Tait proved that even the most feared enforcers can be compromised. His actions demonstrated that federal law enforcement could successfully penetrate organizations previously thought impenetrable. Every outlaw club in America learned from Operation CACUS. They adapted, became more secretive, more cautious, more ruthless toward suspected informants. Tait's legacy as an enforcer isn't measured in violence or loyalty. It's measured in the fear he created, the fear that anyone, even your Sergeant-at-Arms, could be working for the feds. Conclusion. These 10 enforcers represent the most feared men in outlaw motorcycle club history across the United States and Australia. From Sonny Barger building the Hells Angels empire to Taterhead Tait tearing it down from within, these individuals shaped biker culture through violence, loyalty, and ruthless enforcement of club codes. Today, outlaw motorcycle clubs remain active worldwide with thousands of patch members. The U.S. Department of Justice, FBI, Australian Federal Police, and Europol all designate these organizations as serious criminal threats engaged in drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, and organized violence. The position of Sergeant-at-Arms continues to be one of the most important and dangerous roles in any club. The enforcers you learned about today aren't characters from television. They're real people who made real choices that resulted in real consequences. Prison sentences, violent deaths, permanent exile or worse. Their stories serve as a window into a world most people never see. The brutal reality of outlaw motorcycle club enforcement. If you found this information valuable, make sure to subscribe. There's a whole world of criminal history out there waiting to be explored.